Hi, Lyssa deHart here, and today we're going to go into our second ICF 2025 Code of Ethics video, and we're really going to take a little bit of a dive into the ICF Core Values, which are professionalism, collaboration, humanity, and equity. So let's get into it. I would like to share with you a number that just blows my mind, which is right now, 37% of you have subscribed to this channel. And for that, I am grateful. But that also means that 63% of you who are watching this content have not yet subscribed to the channel. And that is a number I would like to change. If you're enjoying this content, the simple, easy thing you can do to help sustain the work that I am doing is to subscribe to the channel. So I want to thank you in advance, and let's get back to the video. So the four areas of the ICF core values are these four: professionalism, collaboration, humanity, and equity. And I wanted to sort of throw up on the screen. Wow, that sounds bad. I don't want to throw up on the screen, but I want to toss up onto the screen what those four core values are so we can kind of just go through them quickly together. This idea of a professional mindset, a coaching mindset, one that is really about responsibility, personal responsibility, professional responsibility, respect, integrity, our competence and communication of where our skill set is, as well as excellence. In collaboration, we're really talking about social connection and community building, that we're not isolated silos coaching in a little vacuum of space all by ourselves, but actually we are systemically interconnected and intertwined with so many other people who are also in our sphere. So how are we collaborating and participating with them? Humanity, in a nutshell, is being a decent human being and trying to show up with whatever is your best self in the moment you find yourself. And equity, which has to do with really being willing to understand that there are inequities in the world and doing your best to clear a level playing field for all the people that you're working with, and that your practice and procedures reflect that you're trying to make an equality across the board for all the human beings that you work with as best as you can. So let's take a look at professionalism. I'm not going to read these to you because you can read them for yourself. But I mean, for me, I think that it is about this idea of what does it mean to be a professional. I mentioned this in the earlier video, but I think one of the things that the Code of Ethics does is it says, I am a professional coach. I have a code of ethics by which I frame my business, frame the work that I do with people and organizations, and that I'm a person who, while I may not have a license like many other professions do, I follow a code of ethics. I have a professional alliance to something that is beyond just, I'm calling myself a coach and this is, what I do. I think it can be as simple as little things like giving citations and credit to the people whose work we may be using. I do a lot of writing, and so I try to make sure that I'm always citing correctly where I'm getting my sources. I didn't just invent every idea on the planet. I may be leveraging other people's work, making new insights, possibly, hopefully, but not necessarily, and making sure that if I'm using the work of, say, Boyatzis or Biswas-Diener or anybody, that I'm crediting them with the work that they've done in the way that I'm writing about their contribution to our important discoveries. I think it's also that we are doing our best to be aware of ethical dilemmas that we might have. So for instance, transparency is such a big part of this as well. I recently had somebody who's a participant in one of my programs ask if I might coach their grown up son, and we talked about the fact that that could be a conflict of interest. I'm not necessarily sure it's a good fit because it may be a conflict, and having these conversations transparently versus saying yes or no, that we're not deciding for people, but we're just being really transparent about where we're at and what's going on for us and what we would need to find out before we moved in any direction forward, whether it is to make a referral or whether it is to set up an appointment. And so I think that's really important. And I think making sure that honestly we are communicating consistently who we are and what we offer that fits within what our sphere of expertise maybe is. So for instance, I'm not going to go out into the world and say I'm a doctor of medicine. I can't. I don't even play one on TV. I'm not an attorney. There's many knots that I am not. And so those are not things that I give opinions about because I don't know enough. And so really also noticing kind of where my lane is and having those, if you've ever bowled, I need bumpers so that my ball doesn't just always gutter ball. But I think it's sort of having the little bumper guards on each side of our lane to keep us in the lane to which we work. So I think that's a big part of professionalism. When we're thinking about collaboration, we, again, do not live in silos. We do not live in a vacuum. I am not in a bubble by myself. Well, I may be in a bubble by myself, but I am amongst a lot of other bubbles. And so making sure that I'm promoting coaching through joint creativity, through doing things with other people. So I'll partner with coaching schools, or I'll partner with ICF chapters, or I'll partner with other coaches for presentations in other ways. And so being really intentional. I also spent quite a bit of time on an ICF chapter, both in New Mexico and then in Washington State. I think that part of volunteerism, where what we're doing is really trying to collaborate with the people within our community and service of communicating what coaching is and the development of professionalism within our practice. And I think also just partnering with people outside of our profession. So for instance, I have other people who I partner with who may be doing things adjacent to coaching, but not specifically coaching. You've all heard me Ray notes. This would be a great example. I really love their product. And so therefore I'll often mention them in the work that I do with people. So, and I think also inviting voices that are different than my own. It's part of the reason I do the podcast and have people like Dorothy Simonovich. I don't know as much about Gestalt coaching as she does, so I want to have her perspective. Same with having somebody like Maria Sierwa on my show talking about really looking at resilience, or Elaine Taylor-Klaus talking about neurodiversity and neurospicy people, is because I want for there to be more than just my perspective in the work that I do. And so I think that's another example of the collaboration. And you don't have to start a podcast to do that, but what are you learning and what are you sharing, not just about your own self, but other people as well? Excuse the quick interruption, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that you were invited to my monthly Coaches Q&A. It happens every third Monday of the month, and we talk about all things coaching. We talk about coaching demos, we talk about competencies, we talk about what to do with resistant clients, we talk about all sorts of things. Plus, we have an added networking event at the end of it. So you are invited to join this community. I would love to see you there. And on that note, let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming. let's move into humanity. And it's really this idea of being a good, decent human being. I'm still of the mind that there's a basic goodness to human beings, that people are striving to do their best. Whether I agree with them on a theoretical, philosophical, political, it doesn't matter, right? Like whether or not we agree or not, even if I'm in disagreement with somebody on their policies or their theoretical perspective, I know that they are typically coming from a place of belief and of genuinely hoping that they're doing the right thing to improve the world in whatever way they see that. And I think there's this recognition also of I'm not a perfect person, you're not a perfect person, they're not perfect people. And so not expecting perfection of others any more than I expect it of myself, but also creating really real conversations and real relationships with people based on honestly showing up as who we are, taking responsibility for ourselves. I know for me, as I run a business, just admitting to mistakes. I had a monthly Q&A. It was a really good one. I forgot to press record. I just owned it. It wasn't the fault of Zoom for me to forget to press record. That was solely on this person who didn't click a button. So just like, how do we take ownership? And whether that's for something as minor as forgetting to press record, which could have been major, but was not, or whether it is in our business when maybe we're making an offering, our pricing has changed, but we didn't actually change it on our website. And how do we hold ourselves accountable to the offer that we made versus going back to people and saying, sorry, you don't get this offer anymore because you bought it at a price on my website and the price has changed. So therefore you have to pay the difference if you want it. I think little things like that talk about just kind of how we're willing to show up as fully responsible for our actions or inactions in any given space. And I love this last piece also, which is really it came up as the brownie rule in one of my group mentor coaching sessions, and I think I'm going to adopt it for life. But if you have a plate of delicious brownies, right? They're chocolate gooiness, they're delicious. It's making me hungry for a brownie, and I don't even think sugar anymore. But the brownie rule is this: there's a brownie for everyone. Make sure you're only taking your brownie. So if you're a person who steps up a lot, just take your one brownie. You're not going to clear off the plate for everybody else. You're going to just take your brownie. But if you're a person who doesn't step up often enough, make sure you step in and take your brownie as well. So how we're showing up and how we're giving space to other people, I think, is a part of this piece of humanity as well. Then we come to the next and final core value, which is around equity. And equity is this idea of a mindset that we understand that we have a lived experience, other people have a lived experience, and our lived experiences may be vastly different. Because of who I am and what I look like and where I live in the world, I may have access to capacities that somebody else who doesn't look like me, doesn't live where I live, doesn't have the same access to the same resources that I've been lucky enough to have access to, may have a very different lived experience. And so I think the other piece of this, and when I was in graduate school for social work, I studied systems theory. That was a big part of the work that I was doing because I was working within family systems as a social worker. And the reality is we are all connected as well as interconnected. There is no me without all of us. And so it is that shift from me to we, to the recognition that all the we's don't have the same experience that the me has, and to give voice to and respect to the fact that I have not walked in your shoes. And so therefore I must ask you about your shoes and about your journey and about your walk, and not presume that because of how you look, you have exactly the same experience or capabilities or even needs as I do. And I've kind of heard it this way also. I mean, I really love the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto you. Not because I think what I would like to have done unto me is the same for everybody, right? But I think that there's something to kind of this idea of how are we showing up with people and recognizing that they have different lived experiences and asking them about what their needs. What do you need versus me assuming what you need? But still, that also fits with the golden rule, because I'd much prefer you ask me what I need than just give me whatever. So again, I think that's really the place in which equity is important. And I'm glad it is one of the core values, because I think that what happens is we can often lose track of this. So these are the 4 core values for the ICF Code of Ethics. And I hope this was useful. Please leave comments below, like, share, all the things, subscribe to the channel. And I look forward to seeing you in the next of these series. Cheers and happy coaching.